The cafeteria at Riverdale High buzzed with noise and laughter until five bullies approached the new girl Emma's table. As the pushing and taunting began, everyone expected the new girl to run away. No one knew Emma's past, her struggle to survive in foster care, and what she had learned to protect herself. The moment that chair went flying through the air would change the fate of the school forever. The cafeteria at Riverdale High was filled with the typical energy of the lunch crowd. Loud laughter, the clatter of trays, and the hum of teenage conversations spread throughout the large space. Outside, autumn leaves danced in the wind, while inside, social dynamics performed their own choreography. The tables were like a visible map of the social hierarchy. Popular kids in the middle section, athletes by the windows, science club members, and artists in the corners. Emma Wilson had found herself a place in the furthest corner of this cafeteria at her new school. With her plain appearance in a white t-shirt and navy skirt, Emma took care not to draw attention. Her dark brown hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and her eyes were firmly focused on the food on her tray. She had transferred to this school 3 days ago and hadn't formed any real connections with anyone so far. This wasn't a new situation for Emma. Throughout her 16 years of life, she had stayed in 5 different foster homes, been placed with 8 different foster families, and attended 6 different schools. Each time she followed the same strategy: be invisible, don't draw attention, survive. New prey on the radar, murmured Jason Mercer, pointing at Emma from the other end of the cafeteria. As the leader of Riverdale High's notorious gang, Jason's words were almost law to his 4 friends. All of them were stars of the football team, all children of powerful and privileged families. "The new girl?" Wilson asked Mike, the largest member of the gang. "A total nobody. I sat next to her in history class yesterday. She didn't say a word." "I heard she came from foster care," said Luke, the group's social media expert. "No one knows who her real parents are. Quite a story, isn't it?" "I think we should give her a Riverdale welcome. What do you say, guys?" Jason smirked, and the others nodded. Connor, the strategist of the group, carefully examined Emma. An easy target. No friends, no one to back her up. Just our type. Derek, the final member of the 5, just laughed. Classic new girl story. She'll be crying and leaving school within a week. As the 5 walked through the center of the cafeteria toward Emma's table, surrounding students began to whisper and watch. Everyone knew what was about to happen. They had seen this scene before. A new student, Jason and his friend's humiliation, followed by social exclusion. Classic high school drama. When Emma looked up, she saw 5 male students approaching her table. A momentary concern passed through her eyes, then she focused back on her food as if she could ignore them. Over the years, she had learned one thing. Bullies love to get reactions. If you don't react, maybe they'll get bored and leave. "Hey, new girl," said Jason, leaning across the table from her. "What was your name again?" "Emily? Ellie?" "Emma," she murmured, still not lifting her eyes from her tray. "Emma," Jason repeated, as if tasting the name. "You don't know us, do you?" "I'm Jason. This is Mike, Luke, Derek, and Connor. We're Riverdale's official welcoming committee." Emma finally looked up. Her eyes were harder, sharper than most people expected. "Nice to meet you," she said briefly, then turned back to her food. Jason looked at his friends and chuckled slightly. "Not much of a talker, huh? That's okay. We'll tell you some facts about the school." Jason reached for Emma's tray and took her drink carton, opening it. "First rule, every new student contributes to the school donation fund." Emma just watched, showing almost no reaction on her face. She had seen this movie before. Since her first day in foster care, she had been subjected to the same kind of bullying in every new environment. For years, each time she had refused to react, until she learned to protect herself. "What do you say? Just $1? Jason smirked. "Second, you should stay away from our tables. These corners, they're reserved for losers." Most of the students in the cafeteria were now watching. Some looked uncomfortable, but none intervened. Standing up to Jason and his gang would be social suicide. "Third rule," Jason continued, growing increasingly confident. "New girls at Riverdale always learn." Suddenly, he began pushing Emma's tray toward the edge of the table. A little lesson in cleanliness. The tray slid off the edge of the table and fell to the floor, food splattering onto Emma's skirt and feet. Silence fell over the cafeteria, followed by laughter rising from Jason's gang. Emma slowly stood up. Everyone expected her to start crying, maybe run to the bathroom. But Emma simply brushed the food off her skirt, then looked at Jason. "Are you done?" she asked in a calm voice. Jason's confidence wavered for a moment, then hardened further. "No, we're just getting started," he said and pushed Emma slightly. "This is our school, our rules." The other four boys had now surrounded Emma. Tension in the cafeteria increased. Some students took out their cell phones and began recording. Others whispered, trying to predict what would happen. "Please," said Emma, her tone changing. "Stop touching me." Jason laughed. "Or what? Will you cry? Run to the guidance counselor?" He turned to his friends. "What happens if the new girl complains in her first week at school, guys?" Mike grinned. "Social death." "Exactly," said Jason, turning back to Emma. "Just stop touching me," Emma said, pausing at each word. "No," said Jason, pushing Emma again, harder this time. "You're the new girl. You need to learn who you are and where your place is." Memories flashed through Emma's mind. At age 9, in her first foster home, a group of kids cornering her. At 11, her foster family's biological children mocking her. At 13, a group of girls pushing and shoving her in the school bathroom. Each time she had run away, each time she had remained silent, until a caretaker taught her to defend herself. Something changed in Emma's eyes. Who knows how many times she had lived through this scene, in how many different schools, in how many different homes or institutions. Each time she had run away, each time she had remained silent. But not anymore. Her current foster family, the Grangers, had promised her, "This is the last one, Emma. No more running. We're behind you." "I'm telling you for the last time," said Emma, her voice now sounding completely different, low, controlled, dangerous. "Stop touching me." From the other end of the cafeteria, a teacher had noticed the situation and started moving to intervene, but it was too late. When Jason pushed Emma for the third time, it was as if time slowed down. The last bit of hesitation in Emma's eyes disappeared. Everything she had once learned and tried to forget came rushing back. The words of Mr. Thomas, the security guard at her old foster home, echoed in her ears. "If you have to defend yourself, don't do it half-heartedly. It's all or nothing." No one saw where the first move came from. One moment Jason was smirking, the next he was lying flat on his back on the floor. Emma had moved with astonishing speed, using a defensive move she had learned over years in foster homes and on the streets to take Jason down. The other four boys froze in shock. Then Mike made his move, lunging toward Emma. She grabbed a chair and lifted it into the air, swinging it at Mike's chest. The chair shattered on impact, wooden legs and frame flying through the air. The cafeteria instantly erupted into chaos. Students shouted and scattered, hiding under tables or pressing against the walls. Connor and Derek attacked Emma simultaneously, but she slipped between them with incredible agility, jumping over a table and grabbing another chair. "Enough!" shouted a teacher, but no one heard his voice in the chaos. Luke tried to grab Emma from behind, but she spun around and hurled the second chair at him too. This collision was harder than the first, chair pieces flying in all directions. Luke stumbled backward, crying out in pain, his hand going to his cheek where blood was seeping between his fingers. Jason had gotten back to his feet, his face a mixture of shock and anger. "You crazy," he began, but Emma was already beside him, her eyes cold and calculating. "I'm not crazy," said Emma, her voice colder than ice. "I'm just tired of running away." By now, 3 teachers were trying to intervene. "Emma Wilson! Jason Mercer! Stop right now!" "Mr. Rodriguez," the vice principal shouted. Jason made one last attempt to punch Emma, but she moved like someone who had learned to defend herself for years, blocking the punch and throwing Jason toward a table. The table toppled, trays, drinks, and food scraps scattering everywhere. "Enough!" This time the voice was so powerful that the entire cafeteria suddenly fell silent. Principal Lancaster stood at the door, his face red with anger. A large man in his 60s, he was the most respected and feared figure in the school. "Wilson, Mercer, and the rest of you, in my office immediately," he roared. Emma looked around as if coming out of a trance. The cafeteria was in disarray, broken chairs, overturned tables, food scattered on the floor. The other students had backed away in fear. Some had already recorded the event on their phones. Emma took a deep breath, her white t-shirt now covered with food stains, her navy skirt crumpled. She slowly lowered her hands to her sides and looked at the principal. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice calm and controlled again. "But they started it." Principal Lancaster narrowed his eyes. "My office. Now." The atmosphere in the principal's office was icy. Emma sat alone in a chair, Jason and his gang on the opposite side. Principal Lancaster looked at them from behind his desk, his face bearing an expression of deep disappointment. On the walls, framed awards and photographs of the school's past achievements hung, all symbols that seemed to remind Emma how unrelated this world was to her own. "I've been an educator for 15 years, the principal began, "and what I saw today is disgraceful. Mr. Mercer, I expected better from you and your friends." Jason pointed an accusing finger at Emma. "She started it. She attacked us. Look at Luke's face. It's covered in blood." "The video recordings tell a different story, Mr. Mercer," the principal said coldly. "Security cameras recorded everything clearly. They show you and your friends harassing Ms. Wilson, dropping her tray, and pushing her." Jason's face paled. The other boys shifted uncomfortably. Luke moaned as he held an ice pack against the cut on his cheek. "In addition," said the principal, pointing to his phone on the desk, "at least 20 students recorded the entire incident. It's going viral on social media right now." This caused a look of genuine fear on the faces of all 5 boys. Their parents, coaches, future university admissions committees, they could all see these videos. "However," the principal continued, now turning to Emma, "this doesn't justify Ms. Wilson's response. Throwing chairs until they shattered. This was a battlefield, not a school." Emma lowered her head, but there was more determination than regret in her eyes. "I was defending myself." "There's a difference between defending yourself and counterattacking," said the principal. "I looked at your file, Miss Wilson. This is your 5th school." Emma remained silent. What could she say? The facts were clear. "You left each of your previous schools because of similar incidents," said the principal, reading from the file. "Fights, violent incidents. I understand you've had a difficult life." "Each time I was defending myself," said Emma, her voice trembling slightly, "no one believed me. Each time, they blamed me." The principal closed the file and took a deep breath. "Mr. Mercer and his friends, you will receive a 3-week suspension. Additionally, you will pay for the damage to school property and perform community service." Jason began to object. "But my father—" "Your father is already on his way, Mr. Mercer," the principal said sternly. "I'm sure he won't be pleased with this incident either." Jason wanted to continue objecting, but fell silent under the principal's stern gaze. "Ms. Wilson," said the principal, turning to Emma, "normally this kind of behavior would result in immediate expulsion." Concern crossed Emma's face. Not another school, not another fresh start. The Grangers had promised this would be their last transfer. "However," the principal continued, "I spoke with your social worker. I understand your past and what you've been through. This doesn't excuse your behavior, but perhaps it explains it." Emma blinked in surprise. Usually no one listened. No one understood. "I'm going to give you one more chance," said the principal. 2 weeks suspension, followed by mandatory anger management counseling. Also, like Mr. Mercer and his friends, you will pay for the damage and perform community service." "Thank you," Emma said in a low voice. "This is your last chance, Ms. Wilson," the principal said seriously. "Next time, come to me first to find a solution. At this school, we solve our problems through communication, not violence. Understood?" "Yes, sir," said Emma. "You may all go," said the principal. "Your parents are waiting to pick you up." When Emma exited the school building, she encountered something unexpected. In front of the school, most of the students had gathered, whispering and looking at her. However, the looks were not of fear or contempt as she had expected. There was curiosity, perhaps a little respect. A girl approached her, Sarah Miller, a quiet girl from art class whom Emma recognized. "Hey," Sarah said. "Hey," Emma replied cautiously. "That thing you did in the cafeteria, it was pretty impressive," said Sarah. "No one has ever dared to stand up to Jason and his gang before?" Emma shrugged. "I was just defending myself." "Maybe," said Sarah, "but you were defending all of us too. Jason has been bullying everyone for years. My younger brother had to change schools to escape his wrath." Emma considered this. She had always fought alone, always for herself. The idea of defending others was new. "Where did you learn, to fight like that?" Sarah asked. Emma hesitated. Sharing her story, exposing her past was always dangerous. People would judge, pity, or worse, fear her. Then perhaps for the first time, she decided to tell her story. "I grew up in many foster homes," she said. "Sometimes you have to defend yourself." Sarah nodded, listening without judgment. "In every new school, every new home, there were always people like Jason," Emma continued. "After a while, you either learn to fight or you're always a victim." "I'm sorry," said Sarah sincerely. "I can't even imagine what that's like." Emma smiled with slight moisture in her eyes. "Thank you." Meanwhile, a car pulled up at the curb and a woman got out. Emma's foster mother, Lisa Granger. "Emma," Lisa called out with concern. "Are you okay?" when the principal called. "I'm fine, Lisa," said Emma. "I'm sorry for getting in trouble in the first week of school." Lisa came to Emma's side and hesitantly placed her hand on the girl's shoulder, respecting her cautious nature. "The principal told me what happened. I know you needed to defend yourself, but maybe there could have been another way." Emma nodded. "I know, I'm trying to learn." Sarah stepped forward. "Hello, Mrs. Granger. I'm Sarah. Emma, she was really brave today." Lisa looked at the girls, then smiled. "I'm sure she was. Emma has always been brave." "Can we talk later?" Sarah asked Emma. "I mean, after your suspension is over. Maybe we can hang out. I have a group of friends I'd like to introduce you to." Emma's eyes widened in surprise. A new friend? Could this really be a fresh start? Throughout her entire life, she had never had a real friend. Always temporary relationships, always until the next transfer. "Yes," she finally said. "That would be nice." As Lisa and Emma walked toward the car, other students waved at them, some giving Emma supportive looks. For the first time, Emma felt different. Not alone, perhaps even belonging somewhere. "2 weeks suspension, huh?" said Lisa as they got into the car. "What will we do with that time?" Emma thought. "Maybe I could work on anger management. I really want to be different this time." Lisa squeezed the girl's hand. "You will be. It'll just take time. And Mark and I are with you through this entire process. Remember, you don't have to run away anymore, Emma. You have a home with us here." Emma took one last look at the school building. Maybe Riverdale High could really be different. Maybe she could finally belong somewhere. As the car pulled away, Emma felt hopeful for the first time in a long time. Yes, chairs had flown through the air in a chaotic mess in the cafeteria, but perhaps sometimes for life to change for the better, some things need to break. The 2-week suspension period passed unexpectedly for Emma. In that small room in the Granger's house, she felt truly safe for the first time in her life. Mark and Lisa had kept their word. They hadn't judged her, they had supported her. Every morning, Mark had gone running with her, explaining the importance of channeling energy in a controlled way. Lisa had taught her cooking, gardening, and even yoga, all different ways to calm down and focus. Emma had also begun seeing Dr. Patel, the anger management counselor recommended by the principal. "Anger is a natural emotion," Dr. Patel had said in their first session. "The problem is how we express anger. In your case, Emma, anger has been a tool for survival, but now you don't need to fight to survive anymore. Now it's time to learn to live." These words had stuck in Emma's mind. Living, not just surviving. What a foreign concept. When the suspension period was over, Emma Wilson returned to Riverdale High. She still looked plain in her white t-shirt and navy skirt, but this time her shoulders were a bit straighter, her steps a bit more confident. Her first class was mathematics, and when she entered through the door, the entire class turned to look at her. "Hello, Emma," said Mr. Peterson, the math teacher, with surprising warmth. "Welcome back. Please take your seat." Emma quietly moved to her desk. Students continued to whisper, but this time, unlike in the past, these weren't whispers of fear or contempt, but of curiosity and perhaps a little respect. Sarah smiled at her and patted the empty desk next to her, inviting Emma to join her. Throughout the class, Emma took careful notes. Mathematics had always been a subject she enjoyed. Numbers and equations offered a certainty rarely found in her chaotic world. When the bell rang, Sarah stood by Emma's side. "Shall we go to the cafeteria?" she asked. Emma hesitated for a moment. The cafeteria, the scene of the incident. Everyone would be watching her. "Don't worry," said Sarah, as if reading her thoughts. "I'm with you. And don't worry about Jason and his friends. They're still serving their suspension." Emma took a deep breath and nodded. "Okay, let's go." When she entered the cafeteria, she felt everyone's eyes on her. But this time, the whispers were not fearful or contemptuous. There was respect and curiosity. Sarah guided her to her table, where several other students were sitting. "Everyone, this is Emma," said Sarah. "Emma, these are Zach, Mia, and Tyler." Everyone smiled and waved. A normal introduction, as if Emma wasn't the world-famous chair-throwing girl. "Sit down," said Mia, adjusting her glasses. "Sarah told us you're in art class. Do you draw?" Emma hesitated, then smiled and moved forward. "A little." "Great," said Tyler from across the table. "We're looking for illustrators for the school newspaper. Maybe you'd be interested." As Emma sat down at the table, the other students smiled at her. Perhaps this time, at this school, things could really be different. Perhaps she wouldn't always have to fight anymore. "Hey, Emma," said a boy, David from literature class. "Can you show us how you did that move that day? How you took Jason down with one move?" Emma laughed. This new focus of attention was strange. "For self-defense, David." "Only for self-defense." "But seriously," said Zach, "where did you learn those moves? It was like Bruce Lee or something." Emma shrugged. "A security guard at the foster home in Brooklyn taught me, Mr. Thomas. I was one of the toughest kids in the home and was constantly getting into fights. One day he pulled me aside and said, 'If you have to fight, learn to do it right. Then maybe you won't have to fight as much.'" "He sounds like a great person," said Mia. "He was," said Emma, lost in memories. "He taught me not just how to fight, but how to use my mind." "Real strength is in your mind, Emma," he would always say. "If you maintain control, you never have to be a victim." "Where is he now?" asked Tyler. Emma's smile faded. "I don't know. When I moved to another home, we lost touch. That usually happens in the foster system." There was silence as everyone contemplated the reality of Emma's life. "I'm sorry," Sarah finally said. Emma smiled. "Don't be. I'm okay. And right now I'm living with the Grangers. They're different, good people." "That's wonderful," said Mia. The conversation turned to lighter topics. Upcoming exams, the school newspaper, new movies. Emma, perhaps for the first time in her life, was just a teenager. Different, yes, but no longer an outsider. At the other end of the cafeteria, a group of teachers was watching. Among them was Principal Lancaster. "I'm glad you gave her a chance," said Ms. Roberts, the guidance counselor. "I read her file. She's had a tough life. Sometimes children just need a chance," said the principal. "And maybe, just maybe, there was a reason Emma Wilson caused a scene. I guess Jason Mercer and his friends learned a lesson too," said Mr. Peterson. "I hope so," said the principal. "They need to learn that violence isn't the solution." "Sometimes," Ms. Roberts said thoughtfully, "some lessons are learned the hard way. 5 boys attacked a girl in the cafeteria that day. Chairs flew through the air. But maybe our school will become a better place because of it." 3 weeks later, Jason Mercer and his gang returned to school. They didn't look as confident as before while walking around. On the first day when Jason entered the cafeteria, all eyes turned to him. Students were wondering what chair girl would do to Jason. Jason looked toward Emma's table. The girl was now sitting with Sarah and her friends, smiling and chatting. Jason paused for a second to think, then slowly approached her table. The cafeteria fell silent. Everyone was watching. Teachers were on alert, ready to intervene in a potential conflict. "Emma," said Jason with unusual hesitation in his voice. Emma looked up, her face expressionless. "Jason, I owe you an apology," he said, lowering his voice, "for my behavior toward you and, well, actually, toward most people here." The silence in the cafeteria deepened. Jason Mercer, the cruel king of the school, was apologizing. Emma looked at him, really looked at him. There was something in Jason's eyes she hadn't seen before. Perhaps shame, perhaps genuine remorse. "I accept," Emma said simply. Jason nodded, as if expecting more. Then he realized that this was it. This was all he would get from Emma Wilson. Not forgiveness, not friendship, just acceptance. "Thank you," he said, then turned and went to his own table. His friends quietly followed him. "Wow," Tyler said to Emma. "That was something?" Emma shrugged. "You can't live in the past. Dr. Patel taught me that. You have to move forward." Sarah smiled and squeezed Emma's shoulder. "You're amazing, you know that?" Emma thought for a moment. "No," she finally said. "I'm just trying to survive. But now maybe I want a bit more. Not just to survive, but to live." 6 months later, when spring arrived, much had changed at Riverdale High. Jason Mercer and his gang were still popular, but they were no longer the school bullies. Principal Lancaster had initiated an anti-bullying program, and Emma, surprisingly, had become one of the program's student leaders. Emma had joined the art club and started making illustrations for the school newspaper. Her drawings often explored the theme of survival and belonging, dark but also hopeful. Lisa and Mark Granger had started the procedures to become Emma's legal parents. Emma was approaching 18, but they wanted to be a family on paper too. Sarah had become Emma's closest friend. One day, sitting and talking after school, Sarah asked, "Do you ever think about what happened that day in the cafeteria?" "How everything changed." Emma thought about it. "Sometimes," she said, "I've spent my whole life running away. To another place, another school, another home. Always. But now?" Sarah asked. Emma smiled, a genuine smile. "Now, I'm staying. And you know what? It's pretty nice." Sarah giggled. "Nothing can be difficult after throwing a chair at someone's back, huh?" Emma laughed heartily. "That's definitely not true. There are much harder things than that." "Like what?" Sarah asked. "Trusting," Emma said immediately. "Trusting people. Trusting yourself. Believing that you belong somewhere." Sarah nodded. "You're right. But you know, Emma, you do belong. Here, with us." Emma looked at Riverdale High, a place no longer foreign to her. "I know," she said softly. "Now I know." As the spring sun shone down on them, Emma Wilson was looking not at her past, but at her future. Once, as chairs flew through the air in the cafeteria, something had begun to change within her. From a child filled with fear and anger to a young woman filled with hope and possibilities. Sometimes the world can be a harsh place, especially for those who are alone. But Emma Wilson wasn't alone anymore. And sometimes, when chairs start flying through the air, it's not just the beginning of a fight, but also the beginning of a new life. 5 boys had attacked a girl in the cafeteria, and the girl's response had shocked the entire school. But after that day, that girl wasn't just known as the chair girl. She became known as Emma Wilson, the girl who survived, fought, and finally found the home she deserved. And perhaps most importantly, Emma Wilson became known as herself. More than her dark past, more than her hopeful future, exactly who she was. Brave, strong, and finally free. Sometimes life throws chairs at us, and sometimes, rarely, we throw the chairs back. But real change comes when we stop throwing back, when we start looking forward. That was the lesson Emma Wilson learned, and that lesson changed her life forever. If this story touched you, please like and subscribe to our channel. Turn on notifications for more inspiring stories. Where are you watching from? Share in the comments. See you in our next story.